Welcome to Mini Maths at Virtual School Victoria, where we do a lot of maths thinking in a little bit of time. Now, it's been a while since we've had Mini Maths, so let's have a look at the things that we have learned so far. We started by learning what is a multiplication table or a times table. Then we learnt about different ways that numbers are organised and different types of numbers. Then we looked for the connections between the numbers. So if you know a multiplication fact, you know a division fact, you know a fraction fact, and you know a lot of other facts from just one table. Then we looked at the number system and why is it that when we get a group of 10, we make a new column or we organise the numbers in such a way. Then we looked at some problem solving strategies. That was probably my favourite. Then we finished by looking at maths in everyday life. And in this particular instance, it was Easter. But when we were talking about our Easter maths, our students didn't even mention a thing about this decimal point here. They found all the other interesting mathematical ideas, but not the decimal point. So that's why today we're going to make sure that we know a lot about decimal point. Now we're looking at 3.6. Let's have a look at what 3.6 is. Try and imagine a number that is greater than 3 but less than 4. A number that is between the two whole numbers. Where do you think 3.6 would go? Most students actually managed to put it roughly a little bit beyond halfway. So that was pretty good thinking from our students. When we looked at what happens with decimals, there's a whole number 3, there's a whole number 4, and we have 10 even sections that are called tenths. So 3.1 or 3 1/10 all the way to 3.9. 3 9/10 and one more tenth make it a 4. And you can see here where 0.5 is exactly halfway, and that is a good benchmark. And if you know that 3.5 is roughly halfway, you can easily estimate the approximate position on a number line of decimal numbers. Now, and what is a decimal point? We came up with ideas such as it is a marker for the part where whole numbers finish and fractions start. It shows us that the fraction of tenths will follow the 3 all the way up to the 4. Decimal points we decided we see always between the ones column and the tenths column. And a decimal point lets us know that everything to the right of the decimal point is a fraction of either tenths, hundreds or thousands. On a place value chart, the decimal point always comes between the ones and between the tenths. Numbers going this way get larger and larger. Each column is 10 times greater than the previous column. And when we go to the right of the decimal point, tenths and hundreds and thousands, the important thing to remember is that when you go that, oops, that's a bit wonky, when you go that way, the numbers get smaller. When we go that way, the numbers get bigger. So that's an important idea. And the decimal point is our signal that we start chopping the ones into smaller parts. A 1 can be anything. A 1 can be as big as an elephant, as big as a planet, or a 1 can be as small as a 5-cent piece. Ones come in all shapes and sizes, but the important idea of a decimal is that we take the one thing and we chop it up into 10 equal parts. So tenths after the decimal point will always be 1/10. And it's got to be equally divided, and we can write it as 1/10 or no ones and 1/10 just for one of these. And of course, tenths can look like this because we still have 10 equal parts, and 10 equal tenths will make a 1. And of course, 1/10 is written as 0.1, 2/10 is written as 0.2. Now, what is that number? Can you write it with a decimal point? You can write it as 1.4, 1 4/10, or here as a fraction. Here is another way of showing a number. You can write that as 1.5, 1 5/10, or 0.5 is always a half. And in our number system, the decimal point is always between the ones and the tenths. People often talk about the decimal point moving, but what it is, it's the numbers or the columns. So they get bigger and they move the columns, but the decimal point will always stay between the ones and the tenths. Now let's have a look if we remembered what a decimal point does in the number system. It always stays between the ones and the tenths. Be wary that the word tenths, you've got to listen carefully and watch carefully for the THS. The decimal point will always live between the ones and the tenths. The decimal point shows us that we are finished with whole numbers and that we are working with smaller fractions. And that shows the point on a number line between the 3 and the 4. So there you have it. A decimal point is a very busy symbol in our number system. Thank you for listening.